Welcome to By-The-Bywater, a podcast on the Megaphonic Network. I'm Ned Raggett.
I'm Oriana Schwint.
I'm Jared Pekacek.
And we're here to talk about all things J.R.R. Tolkien, his work, his inspirations and impact, creative interpretations in other media, languages, lore, rip-offs, parodies, anything we think is interesting. Thanks for joining us. Hello and welcome to the 85th episode of By-The-Bywater. It is great to be back with you all. It is our 7th anniversary. Woo, yay.
Whoa.
That's right.
That's crazy.
It is crazy, but somehow we've made it this far. 7 years. If you've been with us from the start or new to it, great. If you're fairly new, that's fine too. But yeah, it's weird to think about it. We have a body of work now. I mean, I suppose we've had for some time, but we could go on about that. But let's talk about some other news that is incredibly, vitally important because you're all going to get this book because guess who's announced his new novel? Yay!
Yeah.
All right, Jared, tell us all about it. What's the story here? What can you share?
Oh, God. Okay, it's called Where Fire Rains. And I should have had an elevator pitch. I need an elevator pitch. A ragtag bunch of people on a stolen ship are in charge of a feral goddess who is being pursued by a church who thinks she can return water to the dry world. I think that's what Publishers Weekly said.
That'll do. And it'll be illustrated. You'll have illustrations in the book, but not the cover, like as with West Passage. That's correct?
Yes. I am not doing nearly as many illustrations this time because that was like 70 something between like the chapter headers and all that. This time it's like under 20, so much more manageable.
Right.
I need to do them still. Right after this, I'm going to be working on them.
Working away. I think you shared a couple that you had sort of shared already without saying what they were. Was that correct? Or
yeah. Well, so the history of this novel is that originally, like I wrote it as a graphic novel script way back in like 2015.
Oh my God.
Wow.
And then realized there's no freaking way I'm going to draw this much.
Understandable.
It would have been like nearly 400 pages of art. I don't have the patience for that. So I rewrote it as a novel, but that did mean that I have a ton of like visual development stuff that I've posted in little dribs and drabs over the years. So the stuff I've posted is not actually going to be in the book,
right.
But some things will be recognizable, I think, from what I posted over the years.
And it's not due out for some time, if I remember correctly.
No, it's winter 2027.
Okay. And so no pre-order link yet, I understand. Is that
Not
correct?
yet, not
Okay.
yet.
All right, so we will make sure that you all know about it, as we made sure you all knew about the West Passage when the time comes, but be prepared. It will happen again. And rightly so. And
and I should mention too,
yes.
this is the first of a duology.
Taking inspiration from our beloved
Silver Call. What a salute.
Yeah.
Thinking of anniversary episodes, that was our first one way the heck back when. So
that's right.
Wow. With what we've gone through. And also to catch up on other projects, Oriana, I think you mentioned this before, but you're on the verge of starting a new film documentary project. Is that correct?
Yeah. Steve and I and a friend of Steve's who has done a couple other documentaries. We're in pre-production now. We're going to start production in May on a documentary feature about independent movie theaters all across America. It seems to be, it's both like an amazing and terrible time for all movie theaters. But, some of these independent theaters are really making things work in a really interesting way and forming really cool communities around film. We kind of just wanted to do something nice, and a little bit uplifting of like, we will be going to Seattle, where there is a South Asian film community that is fine. They finally have a physical home of their own, which is really awesome. And we'll be there to showcase that and a bunch of others. And Sight Unseen will also be released on digital on May 19th. So,
all right. Oh, wow, that's news.
Exciting.
All right. Yeah. We'll definitely hype that up a little bit more in the next
episode. Yeah, it's a little
episode.
early.
Yeah. But that is great to hear. So, meantime, I've got writing and things and stuff, and saw a marvelous marvelous show last night, and I could go on, but we've done a lot of intro. Let's get to the meat of the matter, even though this is clearly the worst news update we've had in a while that has nothing to do with Silicon Valley. It's just nothing there. But anyway, Jared, please give us what we have, what there is of it.
Yeah, if you're wondering how relatively quiet news is right now on the Tolkien front, about the only things to talk about are stories swirling around both the Rings of Power and the Hunt for Gollum. So, if we must. That said, honestly, there's really not much to say on the Rings of Power front, although Stranger Things veteran Jamie Campbell-Bower, who had been announced as a new cast member last year, recently gave various comments about how much he's been enjoying the experience. We're glad someone is.
Good for them, good for them. Get that
You're
paycheck.
having a nice time on set.
Right?
Yeah. We're still hiring flesh and blood actors for things.
Yeah.
That's great.
Love it.
Anyway, as for the Hunt for Gollum, a slew of things remain totally unclear, but per reports on Deadline and elsewhere, Kate Winslet, who famously had her major breakout role in the early 90s via appearing in Peter Jackson's Heavenly Creatures, is supposedly in talks to appear as the female lead, which of course raises its own slew of questions, given what little Tolkien ever wrote about that episode essentially only involved Gandalf, Aragorn, and Gollum. Meantime, both Ian McKellen and Elijah Wood have made more comments about reappearing as well, with Wood admitting, and we get it, that he can only see himself in the role of Frodo when it comes to Jackson-based adaptations. Frankly, we're in agreement with this part of Ben Child's recent piece in The Guardian, which we'll link in the show notes. The danger is that in trying to wring every last story from Middle-earth, the franchise may end up leaving Tolkien's world feeling rather like Bilbo himself under the Ring's influence, thin, stretched, and scraped like butter over too much bread.
Boy, does that say it all. I mean,
Yeah.
just what... I mean, Kate Winslet, fantastic performer, fantastic actress. That will not hear a word said against her. What is she doing?
What is she doing?
This feels like it's going to be another Tauriel situation where it's
God.
In the abstract, more female elves or whatever, but in practice...
What is she gonna be? Because this is not a knock on Kate Winslet. Somebody's gonna take it that way. She looks too old to play an elf. She has aged.
Unless they're going to be doing weird filters.
We love an actress who's allowed to age. She's got to be playing like a human or something, or maybe an orc. I don't know, but I think she's
wow.
Okay, I would actually be very interested in that.
Yeah. We finally have a lead female orc, and it's her. I might actually watch that.
Yeah. I don't think she's going to be playing an elf unless. Now that you raised the possibility of horrific de-aging, I am worried about that. But
I think it's ironic we got
Thranduil's wife or something.
Well, no, she can't be because she died in like a dragon attack or whatever.
You don't know what they're gonna. You don't know how far back they're gonna go.
Those movies further retconned into this continuity. Come on, I don't think anybody does. So, oh wow.
I mean, if they resurrect a dead wife, that's maybe a positive development. There's too many dead wife stories out there already.
This is true. Oh, geez. No, yeah. A female orc would be a bold move. And that's precisely why we're not going to get it. So it's just at this rate. So even the Rings of Power
voices Shelob or something.
Oh my God.
Shelob.
Oh my God.
Wow. Shelob talking. That would.
Oh, are they they're doing hot Shelob? Is that what we're.
Sexy Shelob.
Oh,
putting
wow.
the she in.
Yeah.
Wow. What have we...
We all know about the video game Hot Shelob, right?
Yes.
Okay.
If you don't know, we'll link it.
Yeah, Google that, but turn your safe search off, I guess.
Yes. Ooh.
I'm still mad about... I never even played the game, and I'm still mad about that. That was... What a choice.
The world needs right now. Well, with that in mind, onward we go, because there's not much more to say here. But in any event, we got a main topic. It is my choice this time. We've been catching up. We have thoughts. It's going to be a mix. I'm interested to see what we say, but let's just go right into it. So I will begin. We've spoken about many of the major adaptations of Tolkien's work in other artistic media before over the course of our podcast, but we hope rather understandably, we've been concentrating on English language productions the entire time. But part of the reason Tolkien's work has been known worldwide is due to it being translated into many different languages over the years, And similarly, there have been a number of adaptations in turn created specifically in non-Anglophonic countries over that time too. For instance, there is both an early 1990s German radio adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, as well as a separate early 2000s Slovakian radio version, both of which have received much praise from their home audiences. But it's a little hard to subtitle radio, so we'll just have to note that in passing and link to descriptive pages in our show notes, though if you know either of them yourselves, we'd love to hear your thoughts. When it comes to other creative forms, however, a little more can be said. In our episode on the Lord of the Rings musical, for instance, we noted that its ultimate origin was a German stage adaptation of The Hobbit, though little is known about that in and of itself. In recent years, though, a number of non-English TV adaptations over time, in whole or in part, have come to wider notice, thanks to the internet and video streaming, in combination with unofficial subtitling as necessary, bringing them to this wider notice. Two of the most notable, which we may talk about more down the line, include the 1971 Swedish two-part adaptation of a fair amount of The Fellowship of the Ring, while Russian TV aired a 1985 production of The Hobbit, followed by a 1991 adaptation of The Fellowship of the Ring, though nothing further followed that after the collapse of the Soviet Union. It was a neighbor of Russia, though, which created what has retrospectively become perhaps the most well-known of the non-English TV adaptations, the more so because, unlike the others, it did in fact present a complete adaptation of The Lord of the Rings, to an extent. And a quick side note, let me first apologize to everyone from this country for what I'm sure will be my terrible pronunciation of everything. Oriana, who has been to Finland, may be chiming in to correct me as I go, and I will be happy to take that correction. Anyway.
Be really mean about it too.
I'm gonna be so mean.
Yeah.
What I have to go through. Anyway, the 1993 Finnish TV series Hobitit, which simply means The Hobbits in English, grew out of a late 1980s 6-hour theatrical adaptation of the entire book by the Teatteri theater group, held at a famed open-air summer theater location in Helsinki, the Sea Fortress Islands of Suomenlinna. There's a 20-minute TV news/documentary piece from Finnish TV we'll link in the show notes. No English subtitles, we're sorry to say, but it's a great look at what they're aiming to do, and it's just a shame there's no full recording of the entire production, at least to our knowledge. The success of this theatrical production over 2 consecutive summers led to a discussion with the Finnish public broadcaster YLE, or LE, or something like that. Yle. Okay, I'll get it hopefully right. And after both a direct adaptation of the production and a more musical/children's friendly version were both proposed and set aside, the decision was made to create a version specifically focusing on the experience of the hobbits, with the story sticking to Frodo, Sam, and eventually Gollum following the breaking of the Fellowship. Much of the cast of the theatrical production carried over to this TV adaptation, with one notable change being that Timo Torikka, who had played Pippin in the theatrical version, took on the role of director for the series. Both Rima and Teatteri sets and Yle filming studios were used, along with a combination of stock and newly filmed natural footage, sometimes with the actors in the open, but often using blue screen techniques, along with various miniatures. The overall framing was an older Sam Gamgee telling the story to younger Hobbit children, adding the famed Riddles in the Dark sequence from The Hobbit as necessary prologue to the main story. Longtime film, TV, and theatrical composer Tony Edelman, having worked on the music for the theatrical production, created the score for the TV version, while various other local veterans in the technical and design fields did the rest of the honors in turn. Hobitit was edited into 9 half-hour episodes that originally ran from March to May 1993 on Yle, gaining both local attention and interest, as well as mentions here and there among the international Tolkien fan circles. It was then rerun 4 years later, some months after the initial news of Peter Jackson's adaptation had been announced. It has never been reshown since then, as Yle's license for the adaptation expired. Attempts to renegotiate that have never come through, and there has never been an official home release on videotape, DVD, or streaming since, as a result. Home-taped versions of the original broadcasts were digitized a while back, however, and while they never last long on YouTube, versions do pop up on the Internet Archive and elsewhere, though not always with English subtitles. Thankfully, the one we got a hold of did, so we're happy for that. We'll have much more to say about the series in our discussion, but as Oriana has said, both earlier this episode and in the past, creating any kind of theatrical, TV, or film production is hard, and knowing the full details behind the production, at least as much as we can get, as there have been numerous anniversary pieces and retrospective articles on it, but they're not only solely available in Finnish, but paywalled, meaning I've had to piece this together as I can from what's out there on Wikipedia and beyond. It's all a good reminder of the effort it takes to make anything, much less an adaptation of one of the most sweeping books of the 20th century. It's certainly not the Jackson sequence, or the Bakshi film, or the BBC radio version, but it is its own distinct creation. But it's time for all of us to talk about that in more detail, so I'll open the floor. And wow, this was new to all of us, so gosh, I mean, where to begin? I suppose maybe to talk a little bit more about the theatrical adaptation, I am very glad that I found literally today that 20-minute background thing, because you can see the effort that they put into that, and also in I don't know if they were building this new theater or just simply setting it up for the season and all that, but they clearly put in a lot of work, and it's just really interesting to see a bunch of people in literally 88 just going okay, and just getting it all going. But I know you haven't seen a production there, Oriana, but you've been to Suomenlinna. Could you tell us a little bit more about it?
Yeah, it's a really beautiful island, and there are people that live on there, there's definitely housing there. Not a lot of it, but, and also I wanted to point out, I was there in April, which is the nadir of the off season, because there isn't snow or northern lights, and there isn't summer in that area of the world is beautiful. So you're kind of in this in-between stage, but even then there's just you can tell oh, this is amazing in the summer. Truly, and it to be able to see a show there would be very, very cool. Lots of old military infrastructure, probably installed by the Swedes at some point, who controlled that area for a long time, and then it passed into Russian hands, making the most of a kind of weird history there. So yeah, it was also nice to just kind of hear Finnish again. It brought some back to me. I think I only learned about toddler level Finnish when I went there in 2019, but it's a beautiful language.
I tried to learn Finnish, but then kind of gave up because this was pre-Duolingo days and nobody was giving me points for it or anything. So it was nice to recognize 5 words still.
Yeah.
And it's also nice because, of course, very famously, as Tolkien was a huge fan, if you can call it that, of Finnish, and of course based Quenya on Finnish. So while we're not going to pretend any direct connection and all that, I think it is interesting that Finland would go to the trouble of a 6-hour adaptation. That's a commitment from any theater company to do that. It's unclear whether or not it was split up into presumably 2 halves of some sort, or whether the fact that it ran for 2 summers was maybe the first half was one summer and the second half was the second summer. I don't know. That information isn't there, but getting a sense of I didn't have space to delve into the intro, but Finland's own connection with Tolkien, clearly there's been appreciated fandom. Famously, Tove Jansson, the creator of the Moomins, illustrated the original translation of The Hobbit, or an early one. And if you haven't seen those illustrations, they're really very good. They're unsurprisingly, she's fantastic, and it's a really interesting riff on the idea of The Hobbit, especially in a kid's tale format. So clearly that familiarity was there, well before things went asymptotic with the Jackson films. But in any event, as said, they didn't film there, even though we can see elements of it, the way Gollum looks in that pre-thing is eventually how Gollum looks in the show. And I suppose we have to talk about the show, but gosh, where to start? I mean, it's there are things about it that I have questions about, but there are things about it that are just really interesting. I mean, where do you want to begin? I mean, there's a lot to unpack. Yeah,
I appreciated that it was, in a lot of ways, not a literal adaptation. It felt a lot like a 1920s silent movie to me. I kept thinking of F.W. Murnau's Faust, where there's a lot of extremely obvious, extremely artificial looking miniatures. Right. Mount Doom is just a kid's science project. And that being unafraid to look artificial really, really worked for me. Right. Or sequences like Lothlorien, where they did not build a giant forest or even a miniature forest and just had laughter in the trees and Galadriel is a face in the water. I really appreciated that, rather than you can see they had no budget, but
Yeah.
rather than just being like, well, I guess we're going to not try, they got really creative with their interpretations. I don't think it's a very successful thing overall,
Right. Yeah.
but I appreciate how much thought went into it, even if it didn't entirely work out.
Yeah, I would say sort of throwing in the sort of comparative level I have in my brain in terms of TV around this time would be a few years prior, and I'm not going to pretend the budgets were equivalent here. I'm guessing with this other production was a lot higher, but the BBC's TV adaptation of Narnia of that years, because it was around the same era, just a couple of years beforehand. Same sort of mix of in studio and live footage and sort of things like that. And if you look at the two side by side, you'll be like, oh, okay, this one's, the Narnia one is fancier, but at the same time, it is working in the sense of, okay, this is the medium. Yes, we're in the, at the time, the newer era of special effects, even though this is just when pre-CGI kicking in. And you get a sense of sort of like what the medium can allow for, what you can do, and what can you do with what you have. And even though this is rougher, I think anybody coming in going like, oh, gee, it's obviously so low budget, you're looking at it wrong. It's more sort of like, no, this is what was available to them. You have to come into that mindset. And I think what Jared was pointing out is that the seemingly obvious artificiality is more sort of like, no, it's just simply part of what it is. And also, it's based on a stage production. That's artificial by default.
Yeah, it is very, very obviously an adaptation of a stage play, and playing to that is one of its strengths. This is not something that you can watch without already knowing the story. Like you have to know what happens, because there's so many ellipses that you're like, wait, what? What do you mean? Yeah. Like, speaking of Shelob, like that's just like it's there, but it's not at the same time. It's extremely confusing. The Moria stuff is also like
the Moria stuff is a mess.
Not really there, and Gandalf just kind of falls into.
He just kind of gets flushed.
He does get flushed. Well, and they use the same. They use the same animation for Gollum falling into Mount Doom. It's the exact same, which is pretty funny. Why are they spinning?
One of the ways it doesn't work is that it's not interested in explaining anything. But like ordinarily, I'm all about that. I love lacunae in a narrative. But when Gandalf is just like, okay, you guys go ahead, I've got to stay here, and then just kind of spirals into a lava pit. They don't even mention the Balrog, as I recall. He's just kind of like, oh, I'm reading the script. This is the part where I die.
They mention what's crazy is they mention the Balrog like basically at the end when Gandalf reappears and he's like, oh yeah,
right.
and he like fought the Balrog.
But in the moment,
what?
And then
you didn't
and there
say
will
that.
be things like, he just decides I'm going to die now, or later when Frodo and Sam are in Mordor and they pull out Lembas and they're just like, oh yeah, we got this in Lorien. It's like, no, you didn't. We saw your entire time in Lorien.
We saw the whole thing. It was a very long scene.
Yeah. So it's things like that where it's like they were putting a lot of thought into some things, and other things that were just like, I guess anybody who's interested will have read the book and just knows.
Similar to like that is like no attempt to have any height difference between anyone. Gimli, did they even mention
Gimli is weird, but we'll get to him.
Like Gimli and is Legolas Legolas is there, but I don't really remember, like...
Legolas does nothing. He says, like, one line, and he's just there for decoration.
Yeah. Which, arguably. But anyway.
But I do think one of the stronger choices was Boromir. Oddly. Not in terms of, like, they didn't really do the, like, extra work that the Jackson ones did for Sean Bean's version of the character, but at the same time... I was really like into this version of Boromir who looks like a Viking.
He's a little bit combination of like a samurai and a Viking.
It's really interesting.
He's got like Skrillex's haircut.
Yeah.
He's put up in a bun. And he's got like a snake tattoo.
Yeah.
There's a big snake on the side of his head.
Yeah, he's just this like sullen, pale young man.
Yeah, and I find that like a really interesting interpretation of the character that did work for me.
Yeah, and I really liked the in terms of direction, I'm going to keep comparing it to like 20th silent movies, but it's very, very squarely framed. They use light and shadow extremely intentionally. And in the scene where Boromir is trying to take the ring from Frodo, Frodo is sitting, holding the ring, looking at it, and the ring is the center of the frame, and Frodo's on one side, and you see Boromir appear in the distance like a devil over his shoulder. And then he gradually gets closer and closer and closer. And I thought that was like a really interesting way to shoot it. Like he's just getting more and more aggressive as he goes. And I wasn't like enthralled with suspense or anything, but I liked that they were thinking about visuals sometimes, not all the time. But yeah, I liked Boromir. Was the point of that, I guess.
And I'll throw in too that the footage I mentioned from the theatrical production reveals that Boromir's design is carried over from that production. You see, if I believe it's the same actor, but it's pretty much the little snake tattoo or whatever was in there, but it's the same hairstyle and all that. You see a couple of points, it's like, oh, it's him. So it's not everything from what I can tell from that footage was carried over design wise, but that distinct element was. So it was interesting seeing, oh, okay, that further ties in how it goes there. Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll just going into the characterization of it, or maybe just even just talking about it. I mean, when you're thrown into it, you are literally thrown into it. You basically sort of like, exploding Mount Doom, big ring appears, things like that. Credit sequence, fine. But the framing device is very weird because it's sort of like, wait, did the Shire essentially remain unscoured and everything's a disaster? Because it feels like it right from the get-go.
That was where this whole like silent movie horror aspect fell down for me, because the Shire just looks like an apocalyptic barn the entire time.
Yeah.
Like literally they go outside maybe once and the rest of it is
everyone
just this,
is
like
dirty and like disheveled.
Nothing is green. Everything is orange.
Yeah, there's Sam's character at the old Sam is basically at one point almost saying like, says something alongside like, everything went bad. It's sort of like, yeah, everything did went bad, Did the king actually come
These
back?
are the last Hobbit
here?
Children that you're talking to.
Yeah, and it's just sort of like, and Bag End, when you realize Bag End is indeed this very dark barn, it's sort of like going, what? And all that. And again, this is not to say like, oh, you did it wrong. It's more sort of like, wow, that's a choice. And it does.
Well, I would say that's doing it wrong, honestly. Because the Shire is supposed to be
more bucolic.
Green.
Yeah.
I'm fine with Bag End being a barn. I'm not fine with everything being orange and dry.
There were definitely spaces in Finland where you could have done that.
Right.
Outside.
And then relatedly, or something. So, it just sort of like,
just turn on a light somewhere.
And you get a sense like, people are around. Like, we have a version of the party scene, so there is that. And we have, like, a little bit of, like, further activity later towards the end of it. But, everything feels, it does feel, it's different. At the same, again, it's working with what they have, but as you just pointed out, you could have made other choices, and that might have provided better contrast. Who knows? It's very strange.
It's a problem when the Shire looks like Mordor.
Yeah.
Which they do. And I promise I did enjoy some of it. The entire time I was so distracted by every single Hobbit looking like the Lost Boys from Hook.
Yeah! Frodo has Rufio hair almost.
He has Rufio hair. Everybody has these really awful wigs. It was just...
The wigs are definitely something...
Aragorn's
nobody can defend those.
Is the worst wig?
Aragorn looked like Lucille Ball as the Wicked City Woman in I Love Lucy.
Wow. Okay. That's a comparison. That's a good one.
The 5 o'clock shadow.
It was...
Wow,
every time he was on screen with that horrible wig, I was like, I cannot take you seriously.
It truly felt borrowed from like some hair metal band. Like,
it really did.
Well, what was interesting, so in the documentary, there is a shot of the actor who plays Aragorn. He's like, they're on a break or whatever, and he's in the costume, and he's got like a gold earring, but he's not wearing the wig. He's just bald with the earring. And I was like, that's already automatically such an interesting Aragorn.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah. Why can't we do that? Why do we have to have this horrible wig?
Boromir is interesting and different. Like, go for it. If Gimli is going to be just some bald guy, like, why not? Like,
I liked that,
I thought that was fine.
Honestly.
Like, I totally thought that was fine. Like, I am all for, like, more visually interesting like non quote unquote standard.
The dwarves don't all have to look like the Jackson dwarves.
No.
You know, they can just have like a bald one with a beard. Like, that's fine.
Yeah, I didn't mind Gimli's look. I think I minded him sort of like, okay, what's with the twitch or whatever it was. That was
so I don't know if this was what they were thinking, but the way he keeps blinking at stuff, I was like, oh, are they trying to convey that he's like been underground so much
he's
that
not used
when he's when he's in the outside world, he's got to keep blinking?
Okay, right.
That might have been what they were thinking. If that's what they were thinking, I kind of like.
Or he just blinks a lot.
Or he just blinks a lot. Yes.
Yeah.
So that actually okay. All right. Yeah. You know, I want to keep giving credit to this as much as possible, especially because it's sort of interesting. And yeah, you know, it's sort of there are other choices. Let me set up one choice near the start, which I had I'm trying to think of the best way to phrase this. So when we get to the riddles in the dark sequence. Okay, now a Gollum I'll get into, and it's a different Gollum, but you know it's like say I didn't expect Bilbo to sound so.
Oh God.
Special.
Kuka sinä olet?
Mikä se sitten on?
Minä olen Bilbo Reppuli.
God, he reminded me, he was talking, so this is another deep pull, I'm sorry, but you know the 1980s Scarlet Pimpernel with Jane Seymour and Ian McKellen?
Yeah.
The last character that you see the Scarlet Pimpernel play is this like dolt who rescues the Dauphin, and his mouth is full of handkerchiefs. He talks like Bilbo in the Riddles in the Dark scene.
Oh my God!
I need to dig that up again, but yeah, no, it's definitely something. It's sort of like when you know, obviously, you know, it's not in English, so you just have to take it as. But again, you know, you kind of know the balance. But yeah, the combination of Bilbo's very, very bizarre voice and reactions, and Gollum being very Gollum, and things like this. It's one of those things sort of like
so hyperactive.
Yeah. Clonku.
Clonku.
Yeah. That was something where you just sort of like, whoa. If you did not, to your point about needing to know the story before doing this, if you did not know the story before doing this, I would have really loved to know what the heck the mainstream Finnish viewer thought tuning in when they thought that would have been like, things like that. So maybe just sort of throw it open a different kind of direction. One thing that struck me, and we sort of have touched on this earlier, Oriana, but maybe to expand out, when we do get the natural world, I do like how, as with anything, when you film it somewhere, you take on the sense of where you're at. And, you know, obviously, I don't know, Finland doesn't really have anything like Mordor. Of course, they have to do, you know, scenes like that. But getting a sense of the Finnish landscape in the landscape shots is actually kind of interesting. It's not New Zealand. It's instead something else.
No, just lots of birch forests.
Yeah, lots of birch forests.
Flat.
Yeah.
And what that made me think of, and the Galadriel sequence made me think of this the most, was the idea is like, oh, okay, what if the Lord of the Rings, or what if Tolkien and all that had been Finnish or Russian, and how would the vision of it be set? Instead of being like England, what if it were this? It was an interesting way to sort of transpose the story into another setting. And also the use of the term versts, which in the subtitles, instead of miles or leagues.
I don't know what that was.
I had not heard of that before.
Yeah, I have, and I need to remind myself what that is. I should look this up. Yeah, it is, to quote Wikipedia, is an obsolete Russian measurement of length. And it was also carried over in Finland. It was called a versta. And so there is a connection between the two. So again, that little touch of something sort of gives us a reminder of like, okay, it's how you see and how you interpret it through the setting. And again, getting back to Galadriel, I thought it's not the book, but yeah, combining it into where you get Galadriel solely through the lake, and the lake is the mirror. It solves a lot of storytelling problems, you could say, by combining it all, given the space you have. But it also translated because the way she looked as well, it wasn't like, you know, you're sort of now stereotypical, what does an elf queen look like? It's sort of like, oh, there is something based on what I know from things like Alexander Patushko's work with things like his adaptation of the Kalevala. It's like, oh, this feels like a character from that, like someone looking like that. I liked that. I like that sense of like localization, not merely it being Finnish, but it's like, yeah, why not interpret it through this lens? I thought that was really interesting. I don't know where we can more add to that, but it was just a nice touch, I thought.
Yeah.
That sequence was interesting in that, like, why did we preserve Gimli's moment with Galadriel and no one else's? That's just
like they get the the temptation scene in there, and they get Sam having the vision of back home, but nobody else really like has a response to Galadriel herself.
Yeah. Aragorn barely has one, and it's more sort of
that's like his.
That's his whole thing. Is like that's his grandmother-in-law. Like, or it will to be.
Yeah. I mean, we don't even get Arwen in this one. He just, becomes the king and all that. So it's the focus, to make the focus on the hobbits, and specifically Frodo and Sam, on the one hand, makes sense. On the other hand, boy, does it radically oversimplify everything that happens and things like that. So, I mean, what happens with Saruman is fascinating. We actually get Saruman. We get a confrontation sequence. We get a sense that he's lurking somewhere in the Shire. But the scouring, I mean, the ending is really bizarre. It's sort of like, oh, we scoured it. We did. And then Frodo just leaves. It's sort of like,
it happens in like 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Right.
I was like, oh, they're doing the scouring. Amazing, interesting.
Yeah, would love that.
Oh, it's over.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
I mean, if we're talking about things included that normally included Tom Bombadil, that was wild.
And the Barrow Downs, and it feels.
But the Barrow Downs are like in the forest in this version. Like, okay.
I mean, as soon as we haven't really talked about the music much. The musical choices are
so.
Go, Jared, go, please, by all means.
So much of it sounded like Twin Peaks. With the like weird jazzy music that's happening.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I loved some of this music, like the choral music for like I Sit Beside the Fire and Thing.
Yeah.
And all that.
Tulen ääressä istun ja mietin, mitä nähnyt olenkaan. Kuten kesinä entisinä, kukat verhoset
I loved that so much, and then we're back to like, they're walking through the Mordor to like finger snaps. Like it's like what
just
is
light
happening?
Jazz. What I actually really enjoyed the Cat and the Fiddle sequence.
So I hate that part of the book. I hate that song. I thought the version in the movie, like as long as I wasn't looking at the words on the screen, I was like, I am so into this.
Ja isännän koira pieni se, hyvin vitsejä ymmärtää. Ja isännän koira pieni se, hyvin vitsejä ymmärtää. Kun hauskat on jutut vieraiden, niin hörössä ovat korvaukset ja se nauraa hähähähä.
It feels, very lively and was really, I was very into that and really enjoying that they actually did include these songs, even if, the rest of the musical choices were a little strange.
A little strange. I also like in Mordor, there's this rope bridge they have to cross for some reason. I don't know. And Sam sings the Oliphant song to psych himself up to cross it.
Right.
I thought that was great.
Olen harmaa niinku hiiri, suuri niinku pihapiiri. Ärssäni käärmeenä kärk, kun maa ja järkkym. Putka tuossa ruolakoa. Suussani sarvi, kannan korviin, ei luo, annan kun
There's a couple of the more emotional moments that really landed for me. Like I think they kind of did Sam dirty in this one for the most part, but then by the end,
I kind of disagree.
He was annoying. He was so annoying for too long, for just a little too long for me.
Okay.
But by the end, like they had really it was the Sam that I had hoped for the whole time, and some of those emotional moments really landed with him and Frodo, especially. You're like, oh, I'm into this in the way that I would be really into a stage production, I think.
Yeah. This miniseries was fully on board with like Sam / Frodo.
Yes.
Their introductory scene is like, I think it's Frodo giving Sam like a drink of water.
Yeah.
And Sam is like so grateful for it in a very specific way. And then they return to that later with like Sam having to drink by himself or something from it, like at the end. And the last shot is an old and like clearly broken Sam heading off into the west and following in Frodo's footsteps, which is really interesting as a choice, rather than leaving it with like Sam in the book going, well, I'm back from the Grey Havens, which is fine. I love that ending for the book. Having it be the story of Sam just being absolutely broken down by this quest is kind of what the miniseries is doing.
Right, yeah.
Kind of ditto Frodo, where Frodo, after he gets speared, all of a sudden, like, his voice changes into something that
was,
which was,
I like, conceptually, I like that.
But in practice...
Execution.
He just sounded like
Froggy.
Oh, what is... I can't... Froggy. Yeah. His voice reminded me of a specific character from something, and now I'm forgetting what it was. But it didn't sound like an injured person. It sounded like a voice actor.
Mitä me syödään sitten, kun se loppuu?
Kuulehan nyt, Samwise-Gamgee. Rakas pikku hobitti. Ystävien ystävä. Meidän tuskin tarvitsee miettiä, mitä sitten tapahtuu.
Yeah, the only other thing, the implication does seem to be because of the spear hit, because it does literally happen right after that point. Yeah. The only other interpretation I was giving onto was the idea that maybe as the more he holds the ring, gets closer to it, it like starts to corrupt his voice, which I thought, there's room for that too, but it happened so suddenly it couldn't be that. But it was one of those things that went on, it was sort of like, ooh, this is a bit... getting back to I'll briefly get back to Bombadil. The moment I love with him is like you hear this very bouncy music. I'm like, oh man, I guess we're getting the song, and we don't.
We don't.
No. So for a Finnish production to not lean into the Väinämöinen aspect of Tom Bombadil is insane.
Yeah.
He doesn't sing at all. And that's a huge part of like the stories that Tolkien is drawing from in Finnish mythology. Like Väinämöinen sings to exert his like power.
Yeah. Right.
And Tom Bombadil is very much in that vein. In the book, he sings to like do like convince the Willow to get the hobbits out and all that. And here he's just like, hey, Willow, give them back.
Out. It's like, oh, okay, all right. I guess you could do it that way.
Two things to bring up. First, we mentioned the Cat in the Moon thing. The whole Bree sequence, speaking of odd things, that was
weird.
The Bree was clearly meant to be a town in the American Old West. Was my vibe.
A bit, yeah. They've got a deck of playing cards.
Yeah, like deck of playing cards. The vague touches of Morricone-esque music. I mean, that to me was a clear sign. It was sort of like, oh, interesting, and all that. the setting and everything like that. I'm not saying it couldn't work. It's certainly not the book spree, but it was sort of like in this universe of like, sure. But it was definitely a weird vibe. Yeah, Barliman was definitely a choice.
Yeah.
God. I wasn't. I hate his wig because they're all bad.
Bad wig.
But
Sia wig.
I wasn't.
No, Frank Reynolds as Sia.
Yes. That's exactly it. I wasn't bothered by him really until there's that part where he remembers he has to give the letter to Frodo, and there's this completely unfunny, like, physical comedy bit where he and his assistant are, like, passing it back and forth or something, and it was like, it was so distracting, and I was like, whatever neutrality I had for this character has turned into like loathing. I cannot deal with this.
It was such a shock to me to see the episode titles, where it's like, okay, like, oh, we have like a bit of a Hobbit prequel, like, cool, that's first episode, and then we go on, and then I was like looking at and I was like, hold on a second, like, there's like the fellowship stuff like takes up so much,
right?
And I was like, did they like run out of money to do?
Who knows?
Because we spend so much time in Bree and the Old Forest, and then it's like, you know, an equivalent amount of time to do the whole rest of the entire journey.
Yeah. And it's to, not even to diminishing returns, it's to almost no returns, because we don't get, like, the Merry and Pippin here are terrible.
Oh, yeah,
I just gotta be honest. I've got to speak my truth.
Sorry to them and their wigs.
There's no redeeming value to spending this long with this version of these characters. Right. So why not move on faster?
Yeah. So
if we're going to spend time with, you know, Frodo and Sam, and I guess Gollum. The Gollum is, he committed. That's the thing. He committed.
You got it. He overcommitted in a very specific theater way.
Yeah.
Which does not work on camera.
And like, I was a little uncomfortable. Just to, like, he just has like body paint and a loincloth on.
Yeah. I appreciate that he committed to a very, like, this idea, this Gollum has not interacted with anybody in forever. It doing that, but in a very different way from the Jackson, like, circus Gollum. Right. He's much more like, he's louder, he's more unhinged.
And he's so substantial.
That bothered me.
Yeah.
He's just like, he's got a normal body weight. Gollum
he's
is
got
not.
Dad bod.
Gollum does not have dad bod.
Dad bod Clonku.
What I noticed is that, at least for this particular production, it was the guy who played Aragorn is also the guy who plays Gollum. Yeah. So, which I thought was sort of like, oh, once I clocked that, it's sort of like, oh, well, on the one hand, it sort of keeps everything, you know, more, I don't know if the word is organized, but maybe it's just sort of like, it's an interesting split. But yeah, I mean, it's sort of like if you're going to have, you can't imagine a completely thin and emaciated Aragorn. It just doesn't quite work. Weathered Aragorn, yes. But, so it's sort of like, well, if you're going to do one or the other. But it was. I think if there was a moment where this Gollum didn't quite work for me. I think there are others. Was the part where it is Sam and Frodo having the, you know, imagine telling the stories and things like this, and then in the background you see Golluming behind them more closer to the camera. It's sort of like, dude, this is one of the key things of the book, and you're back there going, hi. So unfortunate choice there. I'm not sure the blame whether the actor or the director or whatever, things like that. But touching on that, tone wildly varies throughout this entire thing. It is insane. It starts off incredibly seriously, and everything is very slow paced to the point where it's sort of like, can't people interact, quickly talk? Is the idea that everything is just already bad no matter what, and everyone's just sort of like
everyone's
stern?
just intoning at each other.
Yeah. It's really, really hard. And so when we get moments where it is just Frodo and Sam talking and it's more casual after they leave the Fellowship and before Gollum comes in, it's sort of like, oh, well, this feels a little more relaxed, but it's almost like too late. It's sort of like it doesn't quite fit what's established before. It's sort of like there's a missing through line, which, given the whole thing was all done by one team. It's sort of like, is that representative of the original? Was there a sort of, it is very hard to pin down. It is very unusual. Also, this Gandalf, nothing. This was a nothing Gandalf.
No, fully disagree. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, go. Why?
I loved this Gandalf.
Okay, tell me why.
For what, I will say, it is very funny that he's like young, hot Gandalf. I don't.
Okay, fair.
I mean, would we call that young, hot Gandalf? Are we sure?
He's so smooth. He's got like a Van Dyke beard and like a mustache. He's like, he's not an old, wrinkled man. He does have a terrible wig, but he's like young and anyway. But I liked him so much because the way, I cannot remember the actor's name. Mm-hmm. He plays him as if he's always just a step removed from what's happening. You can see he's thinking about what's going on in a way that like Ian McKellen's Gandalf is not, and that's not a knock on Ian McKellen's Gandalf, which is obviously perfect. Hmm. But he's got sort of like a wryness to him that I really appreciated, this distance that he has. And then there's moments like towards the end when they're about to head into the Shire, and Gandalf is like, "No, you guys deal with this yourself." And Frodo wanders off to stare dramatically into the distance. Mm-hmm. Gandalf looks at him, and there's this expression of regret. I kind of made this guy. This is my fault. Mm-hmm. And then he leaves kind of guiltily. And there were a lot of little things like that he was doing that I thought were great. He's a much quieter, much more low key Gandalf, but I think it's an actual distinct take on the character. I thought
it is distinct.
I can see you do not think distinctly good, though.
I don't know. It's actually kind of he left me with very little opinion, and I think that's not, ideal. So I'm glad you liked it, though.
He was at once to me, apparently just to me, warm and affectionate and alienated from what's going on.
Yeah,
which I really appreciated as a take on a character who's an immortal being who's just kind of temporarily trapped in a flesh vessel.
Okay.
He's got more going on than just dealing with what's around him.
Yeah, no.
So
that's a good alternate read. I can accept that. Yeah. I mean, I mean, to my mind, he just seemed a little too. How can I put it? I miss the usual Gandalf bitchiness. We didn't get that at all.
Yeah, I will. Yes, I will admit.
Which feels actually very
to me that came across a little bit in the way that he was just kind of always slightly smirking at what's happening.
That feels more Finnish instead of being an outright bitchy queen.
Yeah.
Who can say?
I will say, this was a heterosexual Gandalf, so that was a problem. But
truth of the matter comes in.
They straight-washed Gandalf. Damn it!
No. Let me some other things to sort of throw in terms of. I'm just thinking of bits and pieces. There's more that could be said, but I'm also keeping an eye on the time. Some of the choices, which again reflect, I would guess, the sort of compactness of the original theatrical design, just maybe have questions. Like, for instance, when we have Frodo wake up in Rivendell, he's not on a bed, he's on a slab. Almost
they're
looks
in
like
a void.
Yeah, it's
are
you in a morgue?
Void.
What's going on? And then this turns out to be the table around which the council meets, and I'm going man, are they multi-purposing in this Rivendell, which looks like a tiny version of the Parthenon or something like that at points. It's kind of
not even that. There's not a roof. It's just some pillars.
Yeah,
what are they holding up? What are they holding up?
The sky.
Right?
And I gotta say, Aragorn's version of Narsil Anduril, that's one big, broad, broken blade there. It's
swords
it was such a big sword.
Huge. Why?
It was an anime sword.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was like, this is Final Fantasy ass.
Yeah.
That was.
I liked. Maybe "like" is too strong a word, but I was moderately pleased, I suppose, with the reforging bit where he just kind of hands it to some elven children, and they walk away, and then they come back with it like it's reforged. And I was like, okay, I understand they probably didn't have the budget or the time to actually reforge it, but I kind of like that it's some implied miracle happens off stage to get it back to the way. I was like, I'm into that. I guess
we don't have time for this,
Just go and do it. I do like the fact they looked a little different from all the other elves there, with their slightly oddly varying designs and things like that. They were just in simple white going like, hello, goodbye. And I'm like, who are you? Come back. Was that Arwen? Who was that? So, it just wasn't clear.
Like all these people just clustered around a table. Like,
yeah. It wasn't good.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, it's definitely, it's the classic, what do you do with the Council of Elrond scene? It's a lot of exposition. How do you stage it? There's no one way to do it that doesn't make people tear their hair out one way or another. This one was just kind of odd. So what can you do? But you got to do it to set up the stakes. And seeing old Bilbo come back in that moment was one of those things sort of like, whoa, another tone shift. What is this?
Blasts in, and he's like really loud about everything. Yeah,
big old scraggly, like old Western mustache or whatever, things like that. Beardy Bilbo. That was something I did not entirely expect. So but that was different there too.
That was sure a choice.
And something. I'll give you an example of something at the end where I thought it was one thing and it turned out to be another. I thought when we got to the Crack of Doom that it was almost like the way the miniatures were set up, or it seemed like it was a miniature, that they had sort of looking up, and in fact they had approached Mount Doom and they were looking up this huge sort of like peak. And I thought, oh wow, that's actually kind of striking. And then I realized, no wait, it's like weird little like anthill that they're going to just crawl up and just drop it right into the Crack of Doom's little thing there. And so
they're going to flush the ring and Gollum.
Yeah. That sort of threw me. It's all like, okay, that's one way to do it, but I don't know. Again, there's plenty of I don't knows about this. I think one of my favorite sort of random I don't knows, or at least something that I did not expect at all, was the equivalent of Gorbag and Shagrat when they get Frodo's mail shirt. We don't get the full Cirith thing, but we get that. They get the shirt, and in the course of them like going at each other about it all, they said, let's go take this to Umbar and get rich. And I'm like going like, okay. That's a swerve.
I felt like they handled orcs better than Peter Jackson did. In terms of characterization.
Yeah.
Visually, they just have some like warts. But they feel less stereotyped. Like Jackson is very into the orcs being like disgusting people of color. Like it's kind of how it feels a lot of the time. And here it's like they're just some guys who really don't want to be working for anybody right now.
Right. Yeah,
they just want to leave.
Yeah. And
they're not committed to the bit. And Jackson's orcs are fully committed to the bit in a way that the book isn't even like.
Yeah, I would say they are more like the book orcs. They're like, do we have to, and things like that.
Yeah, so, they're complaining. I think it's at the scene with the Black Gate. They're complaining about their jobs. Yeah. Like those are the orcs. Come on, we don't have to have them all be like scary people in dreadlocks. Like, come on.
Exactly. Well, there's more that could be said, but it's out there. We'll tell people, it's about a little over 3 hours. You can like burn through it in an evening. It'll definitely do your head in, but I'd say it's worth looking at once just because it is so unusual. It is very much unlike any other version of it I've ever seen, I would say, and it's good to at least have it in mind just to sort of see how it is. I can see why it has a bit of a cult following, and I can see why it got attention. It is just worth thinking about how literally that appeared at the start of one decade. By the end of one decade, we have the Jackson films coming in. It's so wildly different, and just sort of shows how much changed even in those few years. It's sort of like, it's really remarkable in terms of, filming approach. You think budget to it. It's weird to think about, but it's kind of great in the same way that, there's science fiction in the early 70s that is very distinctly unlike what Star Wars was. And yet it's all part of the same continuum in time and people just doing the tools they have. But that all said, final thoughts. Oriana, any final thoughts on this yourself?
Yeah. Boromir. Wow. A hottie. Wood.
Emo Boromir.
Now we know. Jared, any final thoughts?
I've got like so many little notes just like, oh, I like this, I like this, I like this, oh, I hate that, what's this? So I don't...
Now pick out one.
I'll pick out one. Oh, okay, since I'm... So the Lord of the Rings recaps that I've been doing on Patreon, I've been thinking a lot more about Aragorn as a character than I have on previous rereads, and really... like focusing on what he's doing and what he's thinking and all that. And it was nice to see in this adaptation that they give him moments of like guilt and indecision, which to me are really important to his character. And the Jackson movies are just like, no, Aragorn's got to be like a stone cold, steely badass the entire time, which I hate. But here he's a human being who has flaws, who experiences regret over things he's done and can't make up his mind sometimes. And I was like, no, that's in some ways, the Aragorn that I like. I did not like Aragorn in this miniseries, actually, because of that stupid wig. But the writing, in some ways, is a little stronger.
And I think I'll end with something that was actually kind of like my one joke on this when I was watching it that I posted on social media before I actually recorded this episode, is that in the Prancing Pony and Bree, we have these 4 minstrels up in the galley, classic minstrel in the galley type thing. And given the one guy has large black curly hair and there's the blonde and all that, they seriously look like from a fuzzy distance like the earliest versions in terms of their looks of the band Queen or things like that. And I'm like, I don't think it's intentional, but imagine if it was kind of great.
Yeah.
So, and all that. Who knows where people take things from? So, but
no, I'm sorry. I didn't write a note because I was like, this is so obvious. I'll remember it.
Okay, go.
It's the Lord of the Rings. Where the hell is Sauron?
Excuse you. There's an eye.
No,
there's a blue eye.
There is an eye.
They barely talk about him,
Yeah.
and then when he does show up, it's just an eye in what looks like a colon, honestly.
Yeah.
It looks like a colonoscopy, and it was just there's no sense of urgency if nobody is really worried about Sauron or talking about Sauron at all. And they don't do that. And then to have it be this, like Oriana said, this blue eye that's just there blinking for a minute. What is that? That was a mistake. But it was also very funny. I did take a screenshot of the colonoscopy eye because it was so funny to me.
And we'll leave you with that image, folks. Okay, time has come to select our topic for the next episode. Choice of topic has come around to Oriana. What are we talking about next time?
I don't think we've done this. Feanor and his shithead sons.
Oh my god, I was gonna do that next.
I'm sorry.
Oriana,
I need an
I was
easy
we
one.
haven't talked about Feanor. We need to do Feanor.
I need an
We do,
easy
we do.
one.
But that pungent but accurate way to describe those characters, that's for darn sure. So, wow. Well, hey, folks, if you haven't read The Silmarillion, now may be your time. So,
Yeah.
but that is the way to do it. So that'll give us something to talk about next time. Yeah, all 7 of them. Jeez, so some in particular. So, wow. Well, on that note, so we all thank you very much for listening. Again, you can find us at megaphonic.fm/by-the-bywater. Full episode listing and listings there, episode guides, more information, things like that. You can find us on social media at By-The-Bywater at Blue Sky, and all 3 of us are also there individually and elsewhere, so feel free to follow us. And if you'd like to join the megaphonic.fm Patreon, you can get access to the Discord, where we chat with lots of folks about lots of things and much more besides. Try to remember some of the stuff that's come up this past episode. There have been some great new folks who have joined in, who have participated and asked some really good questions. We really appreciate it. So yeah, if you'd want to throw a couple of bucks and have some thoughts, we'd always love to hear from you. And of course, you can always email us at bythebywater@gmail.com. That's it for now. We will see you next month. So until then, we'll see you.